Hey, so before I start today's video, I'd just like to say that I do have a Ko-Fi account, and since I'm just a college student making videos for fun, I decided that every coffee I receive on there will 100% be going to charity and to those people in need. You obviously do not have to donate, but it would be awesome if you did, especially now during the COVID pandemic. Donations will be going to various places such as the NAACP, UNICEF, Red Cross, and the Trevor Project. If you do choose to donate, I'll put your name at the end of my videos, give you a shout out, or even overanalyze your favorite character in the next video. It's just a small thing that I wanted to do to help the community while we're still in some rough time. Thanks again for listening. Now on to the video. So in the anime, this case was made for a man by the name of Carter Wilson. He was a war veteran who fought in Afghanistan and in the Korean War. Since he won a whole bunch of medals during his service, the town immediately trusted him. He bought some land in Large Hill, Cape Cod after he settled in and started to coach for a Little League baseball team that Ash was a part of. Every single day, a new boy would want to join that baseball team, so you could say that it was pretty popular amongst the town people. He was also known as a good-hearted man, so it was a pretty big surprise when Ash and his father reported him for rape. After the whole town accused Ash of seducing him to the point where his father even turned his back on him, Ash continued to go over to his place, was raped repeatedly, and was paid to do so for about a year. He eventually shot Wilson with his father's gun at the age of 8. The police finally investigated Wilson's house, only to find a sinister image left behind the crime scene. The remains of several young children were scattered within his basement. News of this reached the papers and became a national scandal, as Max claims to have heard the story once before. Given that the Bluebeard of Cape Cod seemed like something that could maybe actually happen in real life, I looked up a few stories that may have inspired Yoshida to write it like she did. Something about the way that Wilson left the remains of the children in his basement just seemed kind of off to me. If he was just a child molester, why would he also feel the need to kill children? It is never really implied that the town notices children going missing either, so what was really going on? Let's start with the word Bluebeard. A Bluebeard, according to Merriam-Webster, is a man who marries and kills one wife after another. This definition is based on a famous French folklore of a character sharing the same name. Bluebeard was written by Charles Perrault in 1697 and is a tale of a rich husband whose wives kept disappearing mysteriously. The story begins with him visiting his neighbor, asking to marry one of their daughters. Although the daughters are terrified, the youngest one agrees, charmed by the life of luxury. The seventh wife is then given a key to the castle and is allowed to open any door except for the underground chamber. Like in The Beauty and the Beast, the longer it takes, the stronger her desire becomes to disobey this forbidden rule. She opens the chamber while her husband is away, then sees the former wives hung on walls by hooks like a decoration. Their throats were slit and the floors were covered with blood. The final wife quickly drops the key and runs for it, buying herself some time while begging for one last prayer. Bluebeard comes back to find the key covered with blood after she dropped it on the messy floor and orders her to be killed immediately. She kills Bluebeard though before he could kill her, with the brothers of the past 6 wives standing by her side. The dead wives are then buried, as the final wife inherits all of the fortune and remarries, making her experiences with Bluebeard a story of the past. I'm sure you can kinda connect the dots of Ash being the final wife and the past wives being the past children. It's not 100% the same story, but it leads to a theory of Ash maybe seeing the bones of the children before he murders his Bluebeard. There's also another story that I want to talk about. Bluebeard was actually based off another serial killer from the 15th century, and this one might have actually happened. His name was Gilderay. He was also a child murderer and a pedophile, and was probably one of the first serial killers in the world. He was also a military serviceman like Carter Wilson and was a general at the age of 24. He was also trusted by the town due to his relationship with the boys' choir in his own chapel. Gilderay was a very rich man, and he was pretty much just as powerful as the king, and he made people aware of it by purchasing a lot of big things like the chapel. Children were beginning to go missing though, and witnesses swore that they saw his servants disposing dozens of children's bodies at one of his castles in 1437. Rumors also speculated that Gilderay tried to summon a demon with his friend, possibly even his lover, Francis Prelati. After trying and failing 3 times, Prelati told Gilderay that they needed a human sacrifice. This was the supposed reason behind the murders of over 100 children. Gilderay wasn't arrested until September 1440 for kidnapping a priest. He later signed a confession agreeing that he raped, tortured, and murdered all of the missing children in his town. The victims were from ages 6 to 18 and were predominantly boys. The paper he signed described all of the kidnappings with full detail, explaining that he did this for nearly a decade. After bribing the child, he'd take them up to his room and strip them or tie them up, masturbating on their stomachs or their thighs and playing around with them. Gilderay would then comfort the child before decapitating or breaking their necks. He would kiss the children once they were dead and kept the most handsome limbs and heads for his admiration, cutting open their bodies and then playing around with their inner organs too. Gilderay gave a short verbal agreement to this and was oddly calm throughout the whole trial. It was quickly decided after that. He was executed on October 26, 1440 by burning and hanging. His platform was set on fire before he was hanged, and his body was cut down, consuming him in the flames and reducing him to ashes. It was later revealed by the Gutenberg Project that Gilderay was given a proper Christian burial, which was kept a secret. Strangely enough, no corpses of the children were found in his castle after after his trial, and many of the townspeople wept and even prayed after his death despite losing so many of their children. Some people today believe that he was actually innocent and that he confessed everything simply to escape being kicked out of the church. Since he was just as powerful as the king despite only being a rich nobleman, the king could have always just set this up as a way to uphold his power. You should totally look into the story if you're interested. I left a link to a really good YouTube video describing the whole case in the description below. Gilderay has a story that's probably more similar to Ash's, including the torture and murders of many children. However, since it could have just all been a rumor set up by the king, none of the kids really stood up against him like the final wife did in BLUEBEARD, so I guess the story is still pretty cool. Anyway, there's one last story that I kind of want to go over. This one's more modern. Apparently, there was already a BLUEBEARD of Cape Cod, and he was called the Cape Cod Casanova. Just to let you guys know, this one is definitely a true story. I would say that it's just a story, but this one actually affected real people and actually happened at around the same time Banana Fish was first being written. Nonetheless, it's a true event. I don't want to disrespect those who lost family members and friends to him, so please don't romanticize it or anything of that sort. I'm just here to tell you what I learned and what happened, okay? Okay. His real name was Tony Costa, and his case gained international attention as it was pretty unusual. Unlike the BLUEBEARDs we discussed earlier, Costa was considered an outcast since he came to the small fishing town when he was only 18 years old and was not a native. He already had a record of breaking in and tying up his neighbors in their own homes in his old town. His family moved away to avoid the consequences of that. In the late 1960s, it was pretty common for people to search for freedom. Girls would randomly leave their towns without telling their parents after they found a lover or a new drive in their life. Sydney Mawson was one of the first victims to disappear. As a free-spirited girl, it was rumored around the town that she had ran off with a boy that she liked, but as the days went by, they grew more concerned. 2 more girls disappeared and Costa was brought into the picture as the last person who had been seen around them. At the time, Costa was a handy carpenter. He had a strange hobby of collecting roadkill and dissecting them. He had an interest in taxidermy, stuffing, and mounting animals. Girls would take an interest in him as he was an outcast in the small town and had a very philosophical point of view in life. He started to target them as he wanted full control over people, and girls happened to be seen as more submissive back then. After an investigation was started, a green duffel bag was found in the middle of the woods. Under the bag lay dismembered body parts of a girl. More and more evidence was being uncovered, including some bloody rope, a bow and arrow, pill vials, and a severed head in a bag. Eventually, the bodies of 4 victims were found in a grave, dismembered and on top of each other.
There are indications that there are teeth marks on some of these parts of these dismembered bodies.
Costa was immediately arrested. During his trial, he had seemed proud of what he had done. He moved around their insides, placing their heart on their genital areas, and when it was proven that he had performed necrophilia on them, he was also suspected of the murders of several other women around the neighboring town. On May 12, 1974, Costa was found hanging in his cell. Overall, none of these cases are exactly the same compared to Ash's backstory, but I think Yoshida was heavily influenced by the BLUEBEARD folklore and the Cape Cod Casanova while writing Ash's past. If not, it was really interesting just to research about 3 different murderers. I don't know, especially with the timing of the Cape Cod Casanova, it's kind of cool to just see how history can affect writing. Also, it was like raining and thundering when I was like recording this, so it was kind of fun to talk about serial killers in like that kind of weather, if you know what I mean. If you want, go ahead and leave a comment below about what you think, and as always, thank you for watching and have an amazing day. For this video's pun, I decided that I'm gonna say it out loud because it just works better that way. But I guess you can say that Banana Fish's plot is pretty sophisticated.